You are the brother of Nick Bils, who died on May 1st, and we understand was shot by sheriff's deputies. What do you know about the incident right now?
Um, well, yeah, I'm Nick's older brother. I know that the evening that he was shot, he was at a park in Old Town, hitting golf balls with his dog, and that part's been released. What ended up happening was park rangers saw him, told him to leave because of COVID, and that his dog was off the leash. And allegedly, Nicky got threatened, swung his golf club at them, and ran. Now, these two guys didn't shoot him. They chased him. They chased him. They couldn't catch him. They got in their cars and they chased him. They chased him in their cars until they caught him. Then at that point, they put him in the car and drove him down to the jail.
And we're talking about park rangers at this point.
Park rangers, yes, park rangers. Now, had they called the police or checked his past record, they saw he ran. The police could have checked his record, saw that he's run before. They might have taken extra precautions to make sure that he was handcuffed properly or that the window was not down far enough that he could escape. But when they got to the jail, he managed to free one of his hands from the handcuff and then reached out the window and opened the door and let himself out. I don't know if that's doing due diligence or negligence or what, but somehow he got out of that car and managed to take off. These two deputies that were walking across the street that saw this, I imagine couldn't have been more than 100 feet away, well within distance to run and catch him. I mean, the guys who arrested him and stopped him chased him and caught him and put him in the car. I don't know what would have prompted immediate shooting on their part. It's downtown. I know we have COVID going on, but I can't imagine it's a ghost town down there. There's got to be people around. He ran in the middle of the street, which means they fired multiple shots into the middle of the street. I don't know how many shots they missed with, but they got him 3 times, and one of those was square in the back. And I would think that a rational thinker at that point, or someone who was seasoned, would have thought, I don't know, a little more than a split second and reacted a bit differently. Now, they haven't released whether or not the second deputy fired his weapon, and they haven't released how long he was on the force. And that concerns me as well. They released the fact that Deputy Russell has 18 months under his belt, and he's only 23 years old. But they didn't say whether his partner fired or if that was his partner or whoever he was walking with. They didn't say how long he was on the force. And like I said, the park rangers, I assume they would have had guns. They didn't shoot. They caught him. And like I also said, they're right outside the police station, which has to have a highly concentrated amount of law enforcement. Why shoot? I mean, was he that scared of a suspect with a handcuff on that his initial reaction was to shoot? That's not for me to say, but I don't know. It sounds like this guy probably shouldn't have had a gun outside of his work, or shouldn't have had a gun in the first place. I don't know.
The information that you have at this point, was this information given to you from law enforcement, or have they spoken to you or your family?
They've spoken to my mom and given her some information, but most of the information that I've given, I think actually everything, they've released on various news stories. But
yeah, the reading through it, you know, the thing, it says 2 San Diego sheriff's deputies were walking to work, saw what was happening. The deputies began to chase the man, and they claimed the deputies saw Nick slam the door on a ranger, which led them to believe that he was dangerous.
Got it. Well, if they saw him escaping from a car and with a handcuff on, a logical person, I mean, I would assume that they had checked him and that he wouldn't have a weapon. and he wasn't running toward anybody. He was running away. And I don't know if proper protocol is to shoot someone when they're running away. If that's the case, the park rangers should have shot him because he swung a golf club at them. And that's what I would think. But it really seems like this is something having to do with an inexperienced deputy and him not knowing properly how to react. I don't know if he wasn't trained properly or what. I mean, again, that's not for me to decide, but I think they had many other options. And if they saw him slam the door shut on somebody and they saw him running away, they saw his hands and saw one hand was handcuffed, one hand was not, then they could have seen that he had nothing in his hands. And at that point, he's not an immediate danger to threaten somebody's life. He's running away from them. He's not running at them. He was running away from them.
Give me a little bit of background on that afternoon. When was the last time you spoke to Nick? Is this something he regularly did with his dog? Can you tell me a little bit more about what led up to this?
Nicky lived alone. He loved his dog, and that was really his emotional support companion. He took that dog everywhere, and he couldn't afford to keep it 100% healthy, but the dog obeyed him and loved him. I did not get to see Nicky very much. I work a lot. I have 4 kids. With what's happening with COVID, nobody's really supposed to go out. I haven't seen him in quite some time. Really, I had texted him around his birthday in March.
What was his living situation? Was he living with your mother?
He lived by himself on a boat, and that's really as much as I know. I haven't been over there, but I would bump into him every now and then, and it's really different when somebody dies of natural causes, or but when you don't get a chance to say goodbye, or when you feel somebody's been wrongfully taken from you, and it's just, everything just points to the fact that they could have done something different. Like I said, the second deputy, they haven't said whether or not he fired shots. And if he didn't, why would Deputy Russell fire alone? And did they both give chase? I mean, they still haven't released every fact about this. And from what I understand, they weren't wearing body cams, but they do have surveillance video. Now, at some point, I would hope that they would release those kind of details. I understand they're probably doing some kind of investigation about it. But
I did speak to the San Diego Police Department today and asked them for comment. And at this point, it continues to be under investigation. San Diego PD is investigating, but of course the San Diego Sheriff's deputies were the ones involved in the shooting. So at this point, it'll be handed over to the district attorney's office, and we expect to, find out more in the coming months. But, as we try and put a name and a face on what happened, you mentioned in our phone conversation, perhaps mental illness and something that Nick has dealt with his whole life.
Well, they've released to the media that he suffered from paranoia and schizophrenia, and he didn't have the easiest life. He kept to himself. He did what he thought was right. He never hurt anybody. Eventually, he would land himself in the wrong place and think he's doing something okay, and police would come and tell him he couldn't. So he would run away, and he would do whatever he could to not get arrested. And he ran like usual, and nobody had ever shot him before. He'd been in, if I'm sure they've posted his record. He's been in and seen the police have seen him multiple times. They've never had to fire a shot. I don't know if they've ever had to point a gun at him directly, but he's either run or he's come peacefully, and they've apprehended him and they've let him go eventually. And seeing that that's how it went every single time, what was different about this time? Was it the wrong person seeing him at the wrong time? Was it the wrong people taking him to the jail because they didn't know his background and didn't know that given the chance he would try and run away? I don't know, but it seems like maybe the police could have taken him in. I know park rangers do have the authority to drive them over themselves and, you know, take them down to the jail. They did that, but I don't know how far into his history they looked. And like I mentioned, the police could have looked up his record and saw that he's run before and he's, you know, tried to resist, but I don't know if the park rangers did that.
Right. And in, you know, from what I'm getting from you, it sounds like you're not surprised that he's had contact with the police and did again. It just seems like this one really went horribly wrong, and due to his background, your take is that they should have handled it a lot differently.
I think so. It always surprises me hearing something like this happens, like when the cops are after Nicky or he does something that, you know, it's just a shame. He's tried to take care of himself. I understand he was taking medication. I don't know. I can't really speak for how surprised I am. I mean, I'm just in shock. Like I got back from a crematorium today and seeing his body and the screams that my mom let out, I will never forget for the rest of my life. They're going to haunt me until the day I die. And this is because some kid acted far too quickly and irrationally, and it seemed like it was out of a panic. Downtown San Diego at the jail, how many police officers and deputies and law enforcement, they showed pictures of the scene and there were dozens of them surrounding. I mean, it couldn't have taken them very long to get there. They could have called it radio. Radio works faster than feet. They could have caught it. It's in the middle of the downtown. It's a tragedy, and I think somebody is going to have to revisit and look at how they approach these kind of situations. And this was probably one in a billion shot. People get taken at jail all the time. I don't know how often people escape from cars there. I don't know how often there are deputies walking across the street at the exact moment. But it seems like it's a perfect storm, and these guys, these departments, they really should use this and look and see what they can do to change something like this in the future before it happens again. It's given enough time, it will happen again. It happened once. I also want to say that the police department hasn't responded in saying whether Deputy Russell's actions were justified or not, and that would lead me to believe that they don't immediately think that they were. And I would think if a police officer or a deputy fired his weapon in just cause, they would say so immediately, or we wouldn't even be at this kind of situation. I'm afraid that without details soon, they might be able to make up whatever they need to protect this deputy. And I'm not saying he should go to jail. I'm not saying he shouldn't go to jail. I don't think he should have a gun, and I don't think he should be a deputy. But this young man is going to have to live with this for the rest of his life. And Nicky's got 3 brothers and a mother who's going to have to live with this for the rest of their lives. And it's not fair.
Right. And as I mentioned, San Diego police are investigating the shooting, and the deputy involved, 23-year-old Aaron Russell. So we expect to see more. And I know that it's a long process, unfortunately, and or for the better, that they may get more details, but you know, it may be several months before we find out more. Any other thoughts that you want to leave, you know, with our viewers about Nick and what type of person he was, or just your thoughts on what happened? Anything you'd like to leave us with?
Nicky was a very sweet person, and he loved his family, and he had a lot of love for everything. He was just scared. He was scared of a lot of things, and he did keep to himself. And I've known him my whole life, and he loved his whole family. He just was not able to show it all the time, and he was not able to act rationally if he thought someone was going after him. And his reaction was always to get away and protect himself and get to safety. And I really think that's what he was trying to do. And I'm sure when we see video evidence of this, it's going to look like he was running away, trying to get away from everybody. And given the fact that he was shot in the back, he was getting away from somebody, and they were behind him.
Ben, I appreciate you sharing those insights with us today, and we'll continue to follow this story.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Let me know if you have any other questions.